Okay, good evening, everyone. We're just going to give people a couple minutes to filter in, get themselves situated. So while you are waiting, just go ahead and just drop in the chat what you're excited about hearing or any expectations that you have, a word or a positive thought you'd like to share, or something you're looking forward to connecting on. So just feel free to drop it in the chat as people are trickling in, and then we will be with you shortly. All right, everybody, we are going to go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ajoa Ayesu Greenlee. I will be host for our discussion this evening. And I just want to start by telling you guys I am really, really, really looking forward to the different topics that we're going to be discussing. I'm looking forward to the space that we're going to create just off of the energy from the panelists and those of you that have decided to show up and be present with us. So, as I stated, I'm going to be the host and moderator, and I want to start by introducing you all. Actually, before we do that, we're going to do activity. So, I know we still have some people that are making their way into the room. And so I want to invite you to get really comfortable, just kind of settle yourself, even if you're still trying to find your seat, get your coffee, get your tea, what have you. Just find a place where you are comfortable and relaxed, kind of get your breath nice and even. Um, Make sure you are free from distractions as much as you can be. Those of us who have we kind of make do with what we have. So I want you to find yourself in a comfortable position. You are free to close your eyes if you like. I always invite my clients, I'm also a certified meditation instructor. I like to invite my clients to um, kind of sit upright. It's for alignment in your body and the circulation and flow of your. If you'd like to, just take your hand and place it over your heart. And we're going to work on inhaling intentionally. That's from deep down into your belly. That's really where I like to say that's where the soul is, deep down into your belly. And just inhale for a count of four, and then take a deep exhale for a count of four. So let's do it together. Take an inhale in and a deep breath out. Go ahead and do that for me again. Inhale in for 4 counts and exhale again for another 4 count. And while you're in this position of intention, I want you to really find a place of stillness within your body. Even if you're in bed, rhythm is okay. Find a place of stillness within you. And the message I would like for you to receive in this moment is that though you arrived alone, we are going to be present together. We're going to connect with one another. We're going to embrace our thoughts, our backgrounds, our experiences, right? Our messages, our care and compassion within this space. So embrace the potential for connection, for village, for community right where you are. And once again, I want you to take an intentional inhale in for 4 counts and exhale for another count of 4. All right. Thank you for setting the space and the intention with me. And you're going to notice I use that word a lot. And very important when we meet like this because we want to make sure that we are purposeful and intentional and really connected. That's how we all grow, right? If we are not just like focused and driving in and kind of going hard, we do that every day. But when we meet like this, when you make the choice to come together and show up, we do it with intention. That's from our heart. So thank you for that. So I would like to start by doing introductions. We have two wonderful ladies who are going to be helping to facilitate this discussion, adding their expertise and their skill set and just all of the wonderful things they're going to bring, learn in this space. And I first want to start with Dr. Chyna Hill. Dr. Chyna Hill is a licensed clinical social worker, researcher, and leader in perinatal mental health and trauma-informed culturally affirming care. She brings over a decade of experience across clinical practice, community-based work, and research. Dr. Hill completed a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Southern California's Center for Artificial Intelligence and Society, where her work focused on addressing systemic qualities through data-driven and community-informed approaches. She has also served as a senior researcher at Google, leading her experience at the intersection of AI, systems, and human-centered design. She is the co-founder of the Health Collective and Foundation, where she leads initiatives expanding across the culturally responsive maternal mental health care and has helped secure millions in funding to support Black mothers and families. Love that. Dr. Hill is also an EMDR certified therapist, holds a perinatal mental health certification, and is deeply committed to translating research to real world impact. She is a mother, partner, and advocate whose lived experience informs her work and grounds her commitment to building systems of care that truly support Black women and families. Let's welcome Dr. Chyna Hill. And Dr. Hill, if you wanted to share one word about what we're going to be doing here today, or a word you'd like us to kind of keep in the back of our minds, what would that be?
I would say transformation, transforming how you prioritize and think about yourself and you show up for yourself. I think as Black women, as Black mothers, we show up for everybody else, but we don't show up for ourselves in our same way. So hopefully with this session, it transforms how you think about self-care and self-preservation.
Love that transformation. I'm going to jot that down so I vision it while we are having our discussion. Thank you. All right, and next we have Dr. Joy Baker. Dr. Baker is a board certified obstetrician gynecologist in LaGrange, Georgia, with more than a decade of experience serving both urban and rural communities. A Morehouse School of Medicine and Grady graduate with honors, she currently serves as Director for Quality and Safety for Women's Health and Department Chair of OBGYN and Pediatrics at Wellstar West Georgia Medical Center. Dr. is among the first physicians in the nation to complete an HRSA Transformational Healthcare Leadership Fellowship and was named a Georgia Trends top doc in OBGYN. She is one of the first OBGYN U.S. certified in perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. treatment of addiction during pregnancy. Her work focuses on advancing health equity, improving maternal mental health, and reducing maternal morbidity, my goodness, alliteration, and mortality. And she speaks nationally on these issues. She also founded Delivering Joy MD to expand across to trusted women's health and hosts a weekly Well Woman Wednesday segment on local television and Roku. Let's welcome Dr. Joy Baker. Wonderful. So, Dr. Joy, what word would you like to share for us in the back of our minds while we have this discussion this evening?
Well, just because I'm Dr. Joy, I want to my word is joy. And I think that joy is so important because not just because it's my name or Christmas just passed, but because joy is not really dependent on our circumstances. It is something that wells up from deep inside of us. And I think that, regardless of all of the headlines and the things that we're hearing about and the tragedies that are happening, we still have the ability to foster joy and to hold on to that joy.
Thank you for that. And I love how you said that joy has to well up inside of you. That's brilliant. Okay. So, first question I'd like to open up with is both of you definitely mentioned something that's very significant in having to find your joy and really hone in on what it is that is important. So, when you think about your own story, what moment or experience made you say, "This is my life's work"? I see a lot of similarities in your background. So, I would love to hear kind of the moment where you said, "Okay, this is it. This is what I'm focusing on." You is open to answer first.
Well, I'll jump in on that. Interestingly enough, I started out in trauma surgery at a large university hospital in Atlanta, and I liked I guess, the adrenaline rush of it. I loved running to these emergencies and like everything is critical, it's do or die. And, I guess I was an adrenaline junkie. But what happened was there were a lot of days that you lost, patients, and I needed something in medicine that would bring me more joy. So I talked to my dean and actually ended up switching to OBGYN. And then as I was going through my training as a resident, I learned about Black maternal mortality from a lecture that we had one Tuesday morning. And I knew immediately that this was absolutely atrocious. I was like, we cannot continue down this path. And one of my teachers, gave that lecture and had been working at the CDC collecting all this data. So I just sort of hooked my tentacles in her and stuck with her. And even now, today, we still keep in contact. But I knew then that, I was going to stay here in Georgia and I was going to work on our abysmal maternal morbidity and mortality rates. So that has been my life's work, and it will be until I retire, probably.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I think for me, it was when I had my daughter. I always thought that I seen moms and I seen maternal mental health, but it wasn't until I became a mom myself that I really seen moms for serious. And I had my daughter. I was what I thought was the height of my career. I was at Google. I was a senior researcher. I was managing a research team. I have everything they tell you on paper you're supposed to have when you're bringing a new baby into this world. So I had a year of paternity leave paid at 100%. I had a partner. All of my grandparents, my grandma, my great grandma were here and able to help me welcome this baby into the world. I had a car, I had insurance, I had all of the things they tell you you're supposed to have. And those things still weren't barriers to postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. And it was in those moments, in that realization, if someone like me who has these levels of privilege that aren't available to everyone, what does it look like for folks who don't have these privileges, who don't have these access, who don't have this education, right? Who don't have this salary and all of these other things. And it was in that moment, I started to notice a pattern after I returned back to work. work wasn't fulfilling for me. I wasn't interested in climbing the corporate ladder. I could do the work, but there was no passion, there was no fulfillment. And I think it was at that moment I really entered a crossroads in my career. And for me, it was recognizing that there are so many Black women, Black birthing people who are in need of perinatal mental health services, and they're not available. And so, what we do is we really specialize in providing those perinatal mental health services to Black women who are currently pregnant and in the postpartum period. I happen to land at Google, but my background is social work. I'm a social worker. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. So I'm a therapist and I have my PMHC. I didn't have no business at Google. I had no bit, but I did it, right? But it was in that moment I realized like this is where I'm supposed to be and this is kind of where my heart led me.
Thank you for that. So what I like is middle of kind of seeing what someone might see as defeating or a challenge or obstacles or almost like a mountain that you can't take down. There is a little bit of a gap where you say, actually, I think I want to do something about this, or I want to do my part. And so I just thank you both for the work that you're doing because it's not easy, especially dealing with Black maternal mental health and all of the things that come with it, right? Because it's not easy work. It's very heavy, and then you see that as you get into it, there are so many layers beyond what you are looking at. And I do want to pose a question to both of you. How hard is it to see if it happens, how hard is it to see yourself in the statistics, some of this, some of the case studies? How hard is it when you kind of have come across a moment where you see yourself in that or you identify with something? And I know typically in medicine, it's kind of my father is a physician, so it's a case or a person, but my dad has a soft spot for a lot of his patients. So how hard is it for both of you when you see yourself in your work?
You know, that is such a, I feel like you have opened up my box because, I've done all the things that they've said that you're supposed to do, get an education, get a good job, all the things like Dr. China mentioned that you're supposed to have before you have a baby. Well, now I'm a 40-something-year-old Black woman who just got married last year. And, we're planning for IVF. And I keep looking at these statistics in my state and I'm thinking, oh my God, am I going to survive this? And it really does give me real fear. Even as an obstetrician, we saw our sister who was a doctor of nurse practitioner, a certified nurse midwife, fall
Yes,
and then
yes,
succumb to preeclampsia, and I'm just thinking about like, oh my God, like literally I'm having conversations like I think I need a gestational carrier because I feel terrified and I hate that I have that fear. And I think like Dr. China mentioned, if I have that fear, as someone who has been doing this for a long time, as the director at my center where I work, then what is it like for the average person who does not have a medical degree, who does not understand the ins and outs of pregnancy and birth and postpartum? What is that like? So I think that is a very real way that I can see myself in some of my patients. I have a um, client that I'm serving right now who is a healthcare leader and dealing with postpartum depression and anxiety and saying, well, how am I supposed to go to the hospital and run
yes,
these teams every day? So I could
yes,
definitely see myself in her and recognize the importance for her to be well in order to do what it is that she's doing because she's taking care of life and death situations every day when she walks in that hospital. So I can totally see that. So I feel a little exposed. But that was a great question. I can definitely empathize with my patients.
yes, yes.
For sure. And
Thank
I
you.
would echo that. I would echo that. And thank you for sharing that, Dr. Baker. I think that with the passing of Dr. Janelle Smith Green recently, I think is very raw because that could have easily been myself, Dr. Baker, any one of us on that call. And it just reinforces this notion that education it's not a protective factor when it comes to some of these systemic barriers and inequities in the healthcare system. And that's still very real for me. I feel privileged and I feel empowered to be on this side of the space, someone who survived childbirth, and be able to advocate, but still recognize that advocacy is not enough. And I don't know if it'll ever just be enough, right? So it feels so raw to sit with that question right now, considering the state of Black maternal health and Black maternal mental health right now.
Yes. And thank you both for being very vulnerable in your responses. That is the biggest thing is whenever we see a headline like Janelle Greensmith, it shakes you up. It kind of, though you're doing the work and, there are positive things, and it's like a gut punch. And it's heartbreaking, especially because, like you said, that could have been me. And I think it's very, very significant that you also said, I survived childbirth. The fact that we have to attach that statement in our community is, oh, thank goodness I survived. That is just we just want to survive. And that is very heavy for women who are considering having children. And Dr. Baker, thank you for sharing that too, that these are the very, very real thoughts that are from our providers. And so when you go to a provider, that is something of a connecting space too, is finding that space where you come together, a space of compassion as you're both navigating the experiences. So thank you for answering that. So I want to transition to my next question. We carry a lot, as we keep kind of echoing, is we carry a lot, we feel a lot, we are empathetic. So, in your experience and in your work, what are you noticing women holding in their bodies and in their hearts, or in general? What is it that tends to come up, that is kind of like a repeat condition or symptoms that women are holding?
I would say, from a mental health perspective, I'm seeing a lot of folks holding tension that is manifesting as physical symptoms in their bodies because they don't feel safe enough to rest, right? There's a lot of grief that also hasn't been named. There's some disappointment that hasn't been validated. I feel like many of the folks that I see are carrying a lot of responsibility, and there is no space for them to have this soft life that we're seeing on social media. There's no space for that. That's a luxury that everyone doesn't have. And then I see a lot of folks who just want to be seen, right? They just want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be recognized. And then underneath it all, it's like, when is it my turn, right? Like, when is it my turn to fall apart? When is it my turn to have a safe space? When is it my turn and someone's going to come and take care of me? I feel like I see that a lot. And then also, there's these little things that start to add up, right? So knowing at 9 a.m. you need to use the bathroom and it's 2 p.m. and you haven't went to the bathroom. Knowing that you haven't had any water today, right? Working through your lunch break. Saying yes, knowing that within your capacity, the answer really should be no, right? And then taking on these excess responsibilities because it's like, oh, someone else has it worse. And I'm seeing that show up more and more. And despite the fact that, the folks that I see, they're showing up well put together, hair, nails, they're showing up for their kids, they're getting dinner done, they're going to work. But on the inside, they're absolutely exhausted. And I feel like I'm seeing this more and more every day.
Very good.
That's all I can say. I mean, she just really summed it up because that is what we're doing as Black women.
Mhm.
This morning, my morning kicked off with, "Oh, we don't have anyone to take call at the hospital tomorrow. Can you find somebody?" I'm like, this is not really my job, but I know that it needs to be done. So I'm taking it on, right? So we're trying to do all the things that we know we should do, not stopping and going to the restroom or eating lunch. That's an everyday thing. We kind of just put ourselves at the lowest rung of the totem pole all the time. And it's time for us to stop doing that. Like, I have to sometimes literally talk to myself and say, Joy, go use the restroom. This patient won't mind waiting 2 more minutes for you to pee. Like, so we have to start building in those, graces for us to live as individuals and to pour into ourselves. I think that's critical to our survival. We're carrying so much. Case in point, I recently took call because no one wanted to. One Friday after Christmas actually, and there was a young woman who came into the emergency room with paralysis, like could not
Mm,
move her leg. So, I'm talking to the emergency room docs, I'm talking to the neurologist and all these things because you happen to be pregnant. And I said, I'm going to just go up and talk to this person. I just want to see what's going on with her because they really couldn't find any like biologic evidence for why she should have this paralysis. They did all these scans and all these things. And I get up there and I start talking to her and I said, there is a very real thing our mind can do. Our mind can affect our bodies sometimes. And I asked her, what are you holding? What is inside of you? How do you feel about this pregnancy? Because this paralysis only happens during her pregnancies. So we started really kind of going down that line, and she started telling me about all these unresolved issues with the fact that she was unmarried and pregnant, the fact that she had been through an intimate partner violence situation, like all of these things that she had never spoken of to someone. And we talked about it, and I said, your mind can actually do these things to your body. And once we had that conversation, and she was able to unload all of that, she got up and she was able to like walk around her room. It was so I have never seen anything like it in my 15 years of practice, but it just reminded me that folks are carrying some really heavy stuff, and our minds will certainly affect our bodies, like somatization disorder or psychogenic paralysis. And as I started digging more into that diagnosis, I realized that a lot of people actually suffer from psychogenic paralysis. I mean, who knew? So we have to be able to have safe spaces to unload the burdens that we're carrying in order for us to be healthy and survive.
yes. It's a very, very real thing. And I think you just taught me something that there is an actual name to it. And I think you wonderful for just kind of taking the pause and having a conversation. Sometimes we underestimate the power of a conversation because you didn't solve the problem, you didn't erase her past, you didn't change her marital status, but what you did was allow her to speak and have a space to just release. And that little bit allowed her to get up and move. And so that is amazing. That's definitely amazing. And um, like Dr. China was saying too, was that what we're carrying, like it's stuff that you can't change with, snapping your fingers or signing a piece of paper or something in that moment. Generational trauma, responsibility, and then it becomes so abstract that we we become part of the cycle just because we're kind of just going. We're just going and going and going. And so these are the things that are definitely concerning because they become part of our everyday functioning. So functioning, we're dysfunctionally functioning. And that is where we need to break that up a little bit. And so we actually have some more that are popping up in the chat. Um, I'm just gonna kind of read off a few because you guys are saying so. You're dropping some gems and just expanding our minds in this moment. And so I have a couple ones that stood out to me that I wanted to read from Janet. Communication is key. You made her to be heard. This is trauma-informed care that is so necessary. Definitely, definitely agree, Janet. Trauma-informed care is it's becoming essential in working with our community because without that, we can be written off, turned away, misdiagnosed, just because people aren't taking the time, the way Dr. Baker did in that moment to really connect with her patient. And so that's a very good one. Thank you for sharing that. I do want to transition to my next question. And so, what we keep kind of mentioning is that we have all these things that we are carrying, things that are heavy, are weighing us down, right? And becoming part of our everyday walk. So, what does it look like when we are stretched thin? So, the strong superwoman persona follows us into a lot of our situations, work, home, family, everywhere. So, if you were to take a look at the women that you work with in everyday life, whether it's in your career, your colleagues, or your patients, or just anybody that you encounter, how do you see that persona showing up on an ordinary day, not just in a crisis? Where is it that you have seen this show up just kind of in passing? And not like, hey, 911, I've come in, I've intentionally made the appointment, I've reached out, I've done the consultation. Where do you see it in life?
I think personally, canceling my own appointments before I cancel work obligations as one example that I think that I am emphasis for. I will reschedule an appointment like that, and they already know, like, okay, Dr. Hill, like we'll move you to next week. And I think there's that. I think not asking for help. I think the default is to just do it myself because I will do it faster. It'll be done the way I want it to be done, and I just do it. But that also means a lot of things end up on your plate and stay on your plate. Um, Convincing myself that I'll rest later, knowing that later for me never comes. It'll go into the next day.
Right.
Um, Wash day, wash day, wash day, wash day, whether that's laundry or my hair, right?
Mhm.
Knowing that these 8 loads of laundry need to get done and I need to just send them out versus convincing myself that I can do them myself because I'm not going to, right? And then also, I think confusing endurance with strength, right? Like saying that I need to persevere to validate my strength, I think is something that I see show up in my own life all the time. And then multitasking, even in moments that were set aside for rest, right? Like about to get a massage and responding to that last minute email, or I'm off for the day, but I'm still checking emails and it's a Saturday, right? Or I say, I'm gonna take a nap, but I'm gonna take a nap after I finish this proposal that I wanted to work on a Sunday. And that's how it shows up for me. And I see the same thing show up in my clients because for me, I see myself reflected in many of the folks that I work with as well.
Yes, yes. I
I
like that
agree.
you said endurance is not the same as strength. And I a lot to my doula clients. You are not supposed to endure something. Or when they say, okay, we have this going on, I'll just kind I'm like, no, 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 no. If you can't be present, let's rearrange how we're approaching that situation or let's decide how you want to show up and not just endure. So I had to write that down. I was like, oh, that's a good one. Endurance is not the same as strength. So yes, I'm sorry, Dr. Joy, go ahead.
No, that was totally golden. I feel like Dr. China and I are spirit animals. We should definitely hang out.
You absolutely are.
So because that is so true. We tend to put what we need um on the back burner for what everyone else needs in that moment. And I am definitely the girl, at the massage studio, probably with my phone like t tucked under my belly just in case I need to grab. So, it's like, why do we do these things to ourselves, right? And we feel like we always have to be on. We always have to be in the know. We always have to be available. And for me, in the OB world, now we have OB hospitalists in many centers where these are folks that will take over for you at, say 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, and then you can come back to the hospital early at 7 a.m. the next morning. I sometimes still struggle with that, like just saying, hey, here's the patients I have for the night, and you watch them, and then I'll come back. Because what would happen a lot of times in my earlier years, especially, is staying up all night with people who are laboring, coming in at 2 or 3 in the morning for the birth,
Mhm.
going maybe to sleep in the hospital for 2 or 3 hours, taking a shower in the hospital, putting back on your same clothes, and then going to work again. Like
Yep,
we
yep.
do some crazy stuff that is not it's just not sustainable for our health, for our mental health. It's not great for the patients either that I've been up all night and I'm then trying to make decisions and help them navigate different, options of treatment. So it's just not good for anybody. And I think that when we
Yeah.
start to realize that and hold space for ourselves to have the very basics like a meal and sleep and a good shower and like your favorite lotion. Like these are not luxuries. These are just things that make life a little bit better for us, and learning to prioritize ourselves so that we are we're able to really be present with other people and to really pour out to other people. But first, we have to fill our cups. So I really appreciated that question. And, I see myself in my patients all the time, moms who may have really serious health conditions postpartum, and they're like, wait, I'm not bringing my baby out. My baby's sick, or, and it's like, but I need to tell, you have heart failure. I need to, I need to see you. We need to make
Yes.
sure that you're optimized, but they will cancel. And you're just like, oh my gosh. So it's that very fine line of making sure that you have enough to be able to give to others.
Yes. Yeah. You have to make sure, like you said, it's the checking in with yourself first. But see, I'll get to me later. We put ourselves on at the bottom of the totem pole. And like we had mentioned in the beginning, your own self-care becomes, kind of like not a priority. So when we start neglecting ourselves, and people think self-care, going to the bathroom, that is taking care of your body. Going to the bathroom when you're supposed to is really not a good way to take care of yourself. But that's what we do. We don't drink our water. We'll go the whole day and you haven't hydrated yourself. It's like, well, imagine you ask for water at some point and then you don't get the water. And it's like, well, your body's trying to give you signs, but you're like, I'll get to you later. I'll get to you later. And that's another thing, Dr. Baker, you mentioned too, was listening to your body. I am very, 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 very big on listen to your body, whether it's decision making, whether it's a feeling, whether it's your health. If you know that something is off, your body will give you signs. But see, if we're in this cycle, then a sign, okay, it's like it's a reminder. No, it's a sign. It is definitely a sign. It's trying to get your attention. It's trying to alert you from the inside, and that we definitely need to listen to. And that brings me to my next question. When you guys are having these encounters with some of your patients and you kind of see, even if you're not asking, hey, what are you carrying? What burdens are you bringing in today? You might not ask that directly. So, what are some of the warning signs that you pick up on that are kind of like, okay, this might be a little bit of an area of concern, something I need to kind of go a little deeper? What are some things that they might bring up during your encounters with your patients?
I think for me, when a client comes into a session, one of the first questions I ask is, how are you? And if someone immediately gives me, I'm fine, I always pause and I say, what does fine mean? Tell me more about that. Because I feel like we're asked so often during the day, whether it's meetings by a stranger, how we're doing, and the automatic response is fine. But for me, my ears automatically peak up and say, like, let me explore this a bit further. Let me see what's around fine, right? And then also, what I've also noticed is most folks can identify with core emotions. So anger, happiness, sadness, excitement, right? But beyond those core emotions, a lot of folks aren't familiar with the language to name things like disappointment, guilt, grief, hurt, right? They stay in that primary level of emotions. So I often pull up what I call the feelings wheel, which is essentially a wheel and it has like hundreds of different emotions. And I
Yes.
ask folks to look at this wheel and tell me which one of these you're identifying with. Like, where does fine go? And I try and encourage people not to just stay there. And then because I am a therapist, I also pay attention to eye contact, body language, what you're wearing that day. So if you're one of my clients who always comes with a fresh set, your hair is always pressed, makeup's on, and you suddenly show up and there's no makeup, your hair is in a ponytail, I'm going to ask you how you're feeling. Or I'm going to ask, like, is this a casual Friday, casual Tuesday? Like, what are we doing today? And I think it's so important to explore past this idea of I'm doing good or I'm doing fine, because those are such, I don't know. I almost feel like the sincerity of those responses have been taken away because we're asked them so often. But when we're asked, sometimes it doesn't feel like we're asked with intention. So I make it my mission to be intentional about how I ask that question and that I explore what's behind the answer to that question.
I love that. I think that's a very good point to make is it's become so routine to just throw it out there that we're just automatic question, automatic response. In my postpartum work, I tell people to when they're checking in on moms, not, hey, how's it going? And then they go, oh, everything's the same thing. When I hear five, that sirens are going off. I'm like, nope, there's no way. 4 days old. I was there for the delivery. It was a little rough. No, 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 no. I do not expect you to be fine. Try to numbers to say, what was something that you enjoyed today? If it's the end of the day, they're checking in. What was something that you enjoyed about today? What's something that you felt inspired by today? What's something that was a little challenging for you today? Something that's, kind of gets them communicating a little bit more. So I wholeheartedly agree. Thank
Yes.
you.
And one more thing to add to that is I like to ask moms to ask themselves at the end of the day, how did I show up for myself today? And if the answer is I haven't shown up for myself today, trying to think about one way before the night ends that they can show up for themselves. And then building in pauses. That is something that is so important, even if it's 5 minutes in between switching activities, in between something you're doing around the house, in between meetings, building in 5 minutes of yourself to truly transition from one thing into the next. I know for me, I used to champion back to back meetings because in my mind, I'd be done sooner, but you're never done, right? So putting 15 minutes, 20 minutes between appointments, between meetings, whatever it is so important. And then I want folks to start asking, instead of what do I need to absolutely do right now, what can wait, right? Like, which of these things isn't going to cause a fire if I don't address in this moment? And using that framework, being able to choose one place in the week where they can intentionally do less, right? Whether it's instead of cooking 7 meals this week, I'm going to cook five. Instead of doing laundry, I'm going to send it out. Instead of, I don't know, helping my kid with my homework today, right? I'm going to let them figure it out and I'm going to take this time to have 20 minutes to myself. I don't know, but figure it out an area in that week where you can do less.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Totally agree. Totally agree. I think, what always asking when I talk to my moms, I'm always asking, like, what is something that you could do for yourself today that someone else, uh, while someone else does what you feel needs to be done right away. For instance, a lot of times I'll find my mom's, we live in the South and it's a pretty small town, close-knit community. So everyone wants to come and visit the baby. All right. Everyone wants to come and see the baby. So I told my mom's like, let's come up with a plan for when everybody wants to come over. Okay, you want to see the baby, want to hold the baby? Okay, great. I'm going to go take a hot bath and relax for an hour while you hold the baby. Or, oh, you coming over? No, I'm not running in the kitchen to try to throw something together, some refreshments or whatever. I just need you to stop by and grab something so that we can all eat dinner. So just kind of engaging your network, I think is really, really important. And starting to think about, okay, what is actually a priority? What do you have to do in the next 1 minute, 1 hour, one day, that as absolutely necessary? And then what actually doesn't matter? You know, I know some of these things get on our nerves because we might want a perfect house and we want, every dish to be cleaned and put away. But do you really need the extra added stress of washing a whole sink full of dishes tonight? Could you get up and do it tomorrow? I think we could. And I think we tend to stress ourselves way out over things that don't really necessarily matter. So putting things into perspective, just because your mom never went to sleep with a dish in the sink, that doesn't mean that you can't, just because
Mhm.
her laundry was always washed dry. My stepmom, my bonus mom, uh, she washes clothes every Tuesday and she irons all of them, including my dad's underwear.
Oh, God
So
bless her.
there is no way. Like I'm never doing that. So
No,
so
no.
but there are these sometimes we have our moms and our aunties and our grandmothers were doing things that we can never continue, but there's so many more stressors and things that we have to do. So if I didn't work out in the public, because being a homemaker is work, don't get me wrong, but there's
Absolutely.
some things that you're just going to have to let go if you want to have a family, a partner, a profession, all these things. You might not be able to do everything the way that your grandmother did it. So we just kind of have to start taking some of that pressure off ourselves and start thinking about, what we really want, what really makes us happy, what really gives us a feeling of well-being, and then pursue those things so that we have that. And I love what Dr. China said about creating margin in your schedule, instead of going back to back to back meetings or, running from one thing to the next. Sometimes just having time to take a deep breath, and just collect your thoughts for the next thing can really reduce your stress level and your anxiety. So I do recommend trying to do that. I can't say I always do it, but I would recommend doing it.
Thank you for being honest, because I know even me, I'll recommend a lot of stuff. Now, if I give you listings, I'll do a couple of them, but I'll always definitely recommend that some positive suggestions to my clients. I do want to invite everybody in the chat. So while we're listening to all of this wonderful advice and insight from these two wonderful ladies, I want to go back to Dr. China's word at the beginning, which was transformation. So what are some concepts, ideas that are that you initially walked in with that are transforming as we are having this conversation? What has shifted for you? What are you to take into practice once we get off of this call? What are some things that are transforming? What's undergoing transformation for you? And so while you guys are giving some of your responses, I want to shift to the main point of our discussion, which is building community on purpose, right? Or with intention. So we have discussed what we are carrying around with us, what we are piling on our plates. So I want to look at spaces where we are connected or not connected. So when you look at the women that you are serving in the communities, this is to both of you ladies, see isolation hiding in plain sight. And even as Dr. China mentioned, you have a mom that will come in totally put together, just going, going, going. Where do you see that although she is outside, she's everywhere, she's here and there, she's in all the meetings, where do you often see that she is in isolation?
I think sometimes for me, with the moms that I work with, I think that they are still seeking communities that may not be aligned with their season. So these communities were great and they align with their old identity, right? But for where they are in this season, these communities no longer align. I think that's one thing that really stands out for me. And then this idea that someone is going to be able to just guess what you need without you naming it. It's one thing to say, like, yes, I need help, right? But you need help with what, right? Do you need help with preparing meals? Do you need help finding a therapist? Do you need me to watch the baby? But really providing folks with concrete action items because folks don't know. And we all have different love languages, different communication styles, and how we give love might not be how that person prefers to receive love. And so it's so important to really name what you need and how you need it so you're not disappointed with people who are genuinely trying to help. And I also think this idea of just practicing being consistent more than well put together and perfect, just be consistent in whatever it is. And as hard as this may seem, being open to this mindset of there still is a village, but this village may be one that you have to pay for. And that's you may need a doula, you may need a midwife, you may need a night nurse, you may need a nanny, you may need a perinatal fitness expert, whatever that case is, because I don't know about y'all, but my mom had me at 18, and so she outside. Like she is not trying to be a grandma right now, right? And she does her best. Like she'll get my daughter on the weekend sometimes, but she's outside. So just recognizing that a lot of the grandmas and great grandmas, they're not like they used to be, and that's okay, right? Like, but with the village, sometimes you got to pay for the village, and I think that shift in mindset is really important. And then lastly, knowing who's in your support system, your existing support system. So you don't want to ask someone for childcare who is not good at providing childcare. You don't want to ask someone for financial support who can only provide childcare, right? So you want to make sure that the ask matches the capacity of the person you're asking it from. So I'm
Mhm.
not the auntie that's going to do childcare, right? But I am the auntie who will help you pay rent or something, right? And that's important for folks to know. Like, how can you show up for them so that they're not asking you for things outside of your capacity and vice versa.
That's very good. That's very good. Because you can have people that are there, or but you got to identify what the needs are from each person. And I'm going to take it back to your feelings wheel that you mentioned too, because you have to vocalize and express what's going on. So to say like, I'm just overwhelmed. It's like, okay, what overwhelmed with, or it's I'm overwhelmed because I'm disappointed, or I'm this, that I highly recommend. I've seen different versions of the feelings, but highly recommend to be able to communicate and also on the other side of it to kind of filter through what somebody is telling you. And that's how you get connected. You start finding the right people in your community that can offer that support to you. So thank you for that. Um, Dr. Joe, would you like to answer this one too?
I find myself in complete agreement. I think we need more language to describe how we feel and what's happening to us, and also what our needs are. Being able to talk about that. I'm a big encourager to, saying, "Hey, use your words. Say what it is that you need, particularly with your partner." Sometimes partners just can't guess what you need, and they're feeling frustrated because they want to be supportive, but they just don't exactly know how or what it is that you need. So giving really specific asks and specific needs, we, as women oftentimes will look around and say, oh, this needs to be done, that needs to be done, and we can sort of figure that out, but not everybody has those Jedi mind powers. So it's really important to talk about that. One of the things that we do in my practice is a postpartum plan. And that's really, really helpful to say, okay, who's all in my support network? What skills do they have? Like, what could they potentially help me with? Is this somebody who's, like Dr. China said, can help me with expenses? Or is this somebody who can come, take this baby in one arm and do all the things around the house while I get some sleep? So there are definitely different niches for different people in your support network, but figuring out who those people are. And I like for my patients to think about doing that before they have the stress of having a newborn at home, and they're sleep deprived and trying to figure out, how am I going to make it through the day. I like for us to have kind of a plan for that going into delivery, because I feel like that doesn't alleviate all the stress, but it sort of gives you an opportunity to kind of say, okay, the first week this person is going to be helping me and they're coming through. Next week it'll be these folks. So that really just, I think, kind of lends itself to building a more supportive network around that those parents. And it's a great way to engage your network, because people don't want to see you struggle. Most of the people in your life that love you, people in your village, your tribe, they want to see you thrive. They want to see you do well. They want to see your baby thrive and your household thrive. They're just may not be exactly sure how to show up. And so by giving them some, real tangible directives, things that you really need, that makes it so much easier for them to be there for you. And it really alleviates that frustration that sometimes we feel. And then we find ourselves snapping off at the people who love us, care about us, and want to see us do well. So I think using words and being intentional about what your needs are can be really helpful.
Yes. Thank you both for that. I think what the conclusion I have here too is that all of this requires a level of vulnerability from both communicators, right? You have to go to a different level of communicating in order to connect, express, to share, to be able to show up, to be the person that is supporting, and then even to be the person that is being supported. Like you definitely have to have a level of vulnerability. But that's what, community is to get to that place of again, being intentional with how you are showing up, being present, your actions, your words, and all of that. So thank you for that. So in the chat, I'm going to read, probably have time for like one or two that I'm going to read. So what way is this conversation transforming, or what type of transformations are happening? And I'm going to read Asha's. It says, reframing rest, maintenance, not a reward, to reset my nervous system. That is very, very good. Rest is, it should not be a reward, right? We're not trying to go through trials and challenges and obstacles, and then we go, okay, you're allowed to rest. Yeah, I definitely like that it's supposed to be maintenance. Just like our cars, if we don't get it serviced, it's going to break down. Our bodies break down, and then, it just kind of goes all downhill from there. So that's a good one. Thank you. All right, my next question before we kind of do a regroup, this might be my last question. Let's see. So, if we are honest, many of us do not feel we have fully ourselves with. From your perspective, ladies, what does a truly safe, nourishing connection look and feel like? So, in our everyday comings and goings, in our friendships, our work relationships, what does that look like? If we want to leave here, want to be able to identify a true connection, what does it look like, or what should we look for?
I would say, someone that, or a group of people that you are able to show up authentically with, who genuinely care for you, people who are not afraid to tell you, pull your coat and pull you to the side and let you know, like when you're way off in the deep end. Those are people who I really always feel a real connection with. Those are the people that nourish your soul and your being, because those are people that you can trust. They're not just going to tell you yes just because, hey, I just want to be a part of the circle, but they are people who are honestly interested in your surviving and thriving and doing well. And I feel like those are the folks that we should really pay attention to and show up for, just as they show up for us. Because a lot of times I feel like, and I don't really, I've never really explored why this is, but we want to look good and be liked by sometimes people that could care less about us, right? But then we have a
Mhm.
group of people who really genuinely love us, care about us, and want to see us win. And we somehow sort of seem to do this weird distancing with that so that we can be a part of this other crowd that may or may not be very interested in our success. So I think that nourishing your mind, body, and spirit and being willing to speak truth to you, that is what I always see as a nourishing connection.
I like that. I definitely like that. Thank you.
I would say, as a follow-up to that, also feeling like you have a space where it's okay to change your mind, right? Like what made sense yesterday maybe doesn't make sense today, and that's okay. And this idea that you have this space where you can be honest, you can be transparent, you can operate with a sense of integrity without the fear of abandonment. I think that folks have to feel safe to be their authentic selves, right? So spaces where you feel like you don't have to perform, you don't have to explain, you don't have to minimize, right? And that this space is a space that's truly regulating, not draining. Like you're happy to be in that space, you're excited to be in that space, right? And you feel more like yourself rather than less.
I want to Joy just said too, I think you are making a point really quickly that we have this thing to kind of keep up with certain standards or expectations, even if we came up with them ourselves. And like you said, to that. So, like Dr. China said, we can't change our mind or say, hey, that was yesterday. I'm kind of feeling different things today. Maybe that's kind of not where my mind was going. And for some reason, we can't do that. And then we just it causes that shift in our system to where then we hold that tension and then we're kind of operating not within ourselves, and then you see where the cycle continues. So definitely having to unlearn some patterns and behavior so that we can begin to fully operate and function the way we're meant to in honoring our bodies. So we are at the close, so I want to ask each one of you something. If there's anything that you could offer to the group, like a takeaway message, what is it that you would like to share with the group very quickly? Like
I
one
know,
word.
okay. Well, I'll go back to joy. And I will
Yes.
say that I learned that within me there is a source of joy that always comes up. So even when it's heavy and hard, we can find joy.
Thank you. Thanks.
And I think for me, this idea that you don't need to earn rest, right? You don't have to burn yourself out in order to earn and deserve that rest.
Rest is not earned. We are entitled to rest 1000%. All
Yeah.
right. So thank you both so much for this really insightful conversation. I know I certainly learned a lot. I have a lot of notes here. It looks like scribble scrabble. It is a mind map that I'm going to slowly piece together. But this has been excellent, and I hope everyone that attended has also been I want to say blessed, but I don't even know if blessed is the word. That you've been blessed by this wonderful conversation that we've had. Want to thank you all for showing up, being present, and just really being vulnerable. Even if you are in the chat, just sharing your own experiences and words that you wanted to put on the platform to connect with other women. Um, their information will be, I believe it was shared in the email that went out when you signed up. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I just want to thank Marie for putting this all together. She is always putting amazing and wonderful events, so please be on the lookout for the next one. These are intentional meetups. Y'all know I like that word intentional. These are intentional meetups to bring everybody together and just kind of take a load off in the just have some good progressive positive conversation. So thank you all so much for joining, and hopefully we will see you again soon. All right, have a good night, everyone.